All right, today we are diving into a huge debate in economics. I'm talking a real tug of war between two big ideas about what to do when things go south. Think the 2008 financial crisis or the pandemic shutdown. Do you act fast or do you let the economy ride it out? So let's just get right into it. This is the question, isn't it? It's what keeps policymakers up at night. When the economy is in a freefall and people are losing their jobs left and right, should the government jump in with a massive rescue plan? Or should it actually step back and trust that the system can fix itself? It sounds simple, but the answer is anything but. I mean, on one side, we've all seen the active intervention playbook in action, right? You've got the huge TARP bailout in 2008, the stimulus checks that hit our bank accounts in 2020. That's one way to do it. But then there's this other, older school of thought, the hands-off approach, that says the best move is actually to do nothing at all, to just let the economy find its own footing.
To really wrap our heads around this debate, we need a good analogy. And honestly, the best one I've heard is thinking about the difference between weather and climate.
And this quote just nails it. It perfectly frames the two giant ideas in macroeconomics. You've got one philosophy that's all about dealing with the sudden, violent economic storms, like a recession. And then you have another that's completely focused on the long-term economic climate, the big underlying forces that shape our economy over decades.
So, let's start with the approach that's all about fighting that storm head-on. This is what's known as the Keynesian playbook, named after the famous economist John Maynard Keynes. And its core belief is simple. When a recession hits, the government has to step up and do something. For Keynesians, it all comes down to this one absolutely crucial variable: aggregate demand. Basically, it's just the total amount of spending in the economy, from you, me, businesses, everybody. If that number starts to tank, well, you're in for a world of hurt.
And the logic here is pretty direct. Okay, so step one, a recession starts, and people and companies get scared, so they stop spending. Step two, the government has to fill that void. It can either spend money directly on things like infrastructure, or it can cut taxes so you have more money to spend. The goal, step three, is to give the economy a shot in the arm and get people back to work. But, and this is a huge but, what if that short-term fix, all that storm fighting, actually messes up the long-term climate? This brings us to the challenger, the Neoclassical Perspective, and it argues that we should trust the system's incredible natural ability to heal itself. See, neoclassical economists say we're focusing on the wrong thing. Forget short-term spending. We should be looking at the economy's long-run speed limit, what they call potential GDP. Think of it as the maximum sustainable speed the economy can go when pretty much all resources are being used efficiently. And this is the absolute core of the neoclassical view. The economy has this built-in tendency to drift back to its potential all by itself. So they argue that government meddling isn't just not needed, it can actually be harmful, maybe by kicking off a nasty bout of inflation. Okay, that sounds nice in theory, right? But how does this self-correction actually happen? I mean, if the government isn't doing anything, what magic force is supposed to pull the economy out of a nosedive? Well, the secret ingredient is supposed to be flexible wages and prices. Here's the thinking. A recession hits, and suddenly there are way more people looking for jobs than there are open positions. This surplus of workers should, in theory, push wages down, or at least keep them from rising. As labor gets cheaper, businesses finally see an incentive to start hiring again. And little by little, that process brings the economy back to its full potential. Now, it's not fast, and for sure, it can be really painful for workers, but neoclassicals argue it's the natural way of things. The legendary economist Milton Friedman put this idea perfectly. He basically said that any government attempt to force unemployment down by just pumping up demand, well, it might work for a little while, but in the long run, you don't really get less unemployment, you just get more inflation. There's no permanent free lunch. So, who wins? The storm fighters or the climate watchers? This epic battle of ideas. Well, it turns out that modern economics has kind of decided to ride both horses at once. And when you lay the two ideas side by side like this, it all starts to click. You see, the biggest difference isn't just about what to do, it's about their entire frame of reference. The Keynesians are playing a short game, focused on the next year or two. The neoclassicals, they're playing the long game, looking decades down the road. And Nobel laureate Robert Solow really summed it all up beautifully. He said we basically need a hybrid model. For the short-term crises, the economic weather, the Keynesian approach is a pretty good guide.
But for understanding what drives long-term growth and prosperity, the economic climate, you have got to use that neoclassical lens. And that, right there, is the critical takeaway for all of us. The debate isn't really about picking a team and sticking with it forever. The real challenge for the people in charge is knowing which tool to pull out of the toolbox and when. Because if you get it wrong, you're choosing between the long, drawn-out pain of high unemployment and the destructive risk of runaway inflation. And when that next storm inevitably hits, getting that balance right, well, that's everything.